Welcome to the Agent Bridge podcast. We're your hosts, Brandon Baca.
And I'm Marl Hessen.
The Agent Bridge is the proven path to real estate success without the burnout. All right, episode 11, strategies for winning in 2023. You know, before we kind of get into the content here, I did want to discuss, because we talk about the Agent Bridge being the proven path to real estate success without the burnout. And I have been talking to a lot of realtors recently that have been dealing with burnout.
Yes.
And I think, I'm speculating here, based on the last, half of 2022, where you had a spike in interest rates, you're coming off of a chaotic but successful market where realtors were selling more than they ever had, even though it was crazy and a little chaotic. And then you throw in, I think the trifecta, one of them is not knowing what's going to happen, having to work harder to make deals come together, and then having to maintain, a positive outlook and a positive, just having to maintain a positive emotional state in the midst of all that. And so those three things together, I think, caused a lot of burnout, and agents really in December were just not that they meant it, but they're like, I just kind of want to quit. I'm tired.
Well, and I was going to say two things: more work to get deals done. So you're writing more amendments, more repair amendments, more special stipulations, more negotiation. Every deal is just more, because it's not, we're going to write over asking and hope and pray that we get it, and then that's it. There's no questions. So I think more work. And then I think too, part of 2022 and 2021 was just easy. Yeah. Like the deals came easier. You're not making outbound phone calls. You're not trying to work to find those buyers. And the people that weren't used to it, that entered real estate in that hot market, didn't know what that was like.
You just didn't have to work as hard to keep deals together.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the sort of main things, as we sort of transition from 2022 to 2023, is maintaining a positive mindset and not getting burnout. So I just want to encourage you, we're going to talk about strategies for winning in 2023, but there is a path for you to have an immense amount of success, but a lot of it's going to require effort, to maintain. I just feel like people need to get a little more dialed in, on what is effective real estate activity and where they need to back off and take some and get some rest and spend time with their family, things like that.
Yeah. Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year.
First, we took a little break. Sorry about that. 2 weeks off.
Yep. But it was nice.
Yeah, it was nice.
Break.
We're back.
Yep. How was your holiday season?
Good. Like I've been telling people, I wasn't used to taking that much time off from the corporate world. I usually took Christmas Day and the day after Christmas basically off, and that was it. And I had basically 2 weeks off to have meetings when I need to have meetings, but was mostly off, which was different for me.
Yeah, that's great though.
Yeah.
Got to spend some time with the family. We ours was good, but we also had our fair share of challenges. My wife slipped on. We had an ice storm here in Nashville. My wife slipped on the ice, broke her foot. And then we had the flu run through our house and 6 children. So it was a little bit of a challenge coming out of the holiday, and we're on the mend now, but it was definitely rough.
Yeah, there's both sides of the spectrum too. When you're at home more, you've got to deal with more chaos, people in towns for the holidays. So it's pros and cons to both. But I was glad to have the extra time.
Right.
So anyway, let's jump in.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to say at the front of the meeting is we do have a goal setting meeting. We're going to put the link to register in the show notes. That's going to happen this Thursday, January 12th, from 9 to 12 a.m. You're more than welcome to come and attend. It doesn't matter what brokerage you're with. Whether you're a new agent, experienced agent, veteran, whatever, come join us. We're going to go through effective strategies for 2023 and longer form, and talk about how to set goals that are going to get you where you want to get. Let's talk about the market and what the state of real estate is as we're entering in January in 2023, coming off of a third and fourth quarter in 2022 of difficulty and volatility and whiplash from a previous market. And so, what does real estate look like, or what should you anticipate? So, what's different, who's entering or playing in the market right now. So I think we're going to see an increase in first-time home buyers. We talked about this on Monday. First-time home buyers were the lowest they've been almost ever in the marketplace, based on just not a lot of them having enough cash. So a lot of the people that were playing in the market were people who had substantial amounts of cash and or equity in their home that they could sort of transfer into a new property.
Yep.
So, which really cut out a lot of first-time home buyers from participating. And so I think we're going to see We're going to see an elevation of first-time home buyers in the marketplace that have been sitting on the sidelines. The other thing is we had a lot of transfer, or what I call is like, the migration from California or Oregon or New York into the southern part of the United States. That certainly tapered off. So you're going to see a lot more local movement, I think. Not that people aren't going to continue to move, but you're not going to see it in massive rates like we saw before.
Yeah, first-time home buyers climbed as high as like 50% back right after the last real estate crash. And we asked it as a trivia question on our Monday meeting. And one of the reasons I knew the answer was because I started buying homes just before the last real estate crash, which was a great time to buy. But I was getting beat out a lot on homes we were trying to buy from an investment perspective right after the crash by people who had these supplemental checks for real first-time home buyers, and I wasn't one. So
right.
I was losing a lot of deals. But it climbed as high as 50%. Last year was 26%. We're at an all-time low. I think you might see some more of that as people realize that, hey, rates aren't too bad. As they come back down, rates aren't too bad. The market's okay. Like, it's not falling out the face of the earth. So now might be the time. And
the other thing you're going to see is just people moving around, typical moving scenarios, life events, marriages, divorces, births, job transfer, things like that. So you're going to see a lot more than that versus a reactive market where people are like, I cannot live here anymore.
Yep.
And, or I'm tired of staring at these walls, or it's like sort of that basically COVID, like I need to live somewhere where I'm happy.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be in the house all the time. So you're going to see less reactive and more life events.
Yeah. And now net worths are up a lot. So we were getting all the stimulus checks. People were at home and couldn't spend them. Yeah. That's why you saw a lot of people entering the market through COVID. And net worths were, I think, at an all-time high, if I'm not mistaken. I think 401k values had almost doubled in that time. So people had come off like just having cash in the bank. And so as a lender now, I'm even seeing people who are 25, 26 years old, been living at home with mom and dad.
Yeah.
And they've got $30,000 in the bank, which you just didn't see 5 years ago.
Right. So so we talked about this also on Monday. What are interest rates doing right now?
So right now they've been trending down since mid to late October. So they kind of peaked just under 8, depending on where you look, high to mid 7s. They've kind of seen this gradual trajectory downward. And we opened on Monday at like 6.2. I think it's right around there again today. I even didn't close, but locked someone in the 5s, high 5s, late last week.
Yeah,
so
which is great.
It's great. They were first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
They had great credit and money to put down, so they had some additional factors that helped them. But 5.9 right now, nobody was talking about that 6 months ago. So
yeah, that's fantastic.
Or actually more like 3, but
right. So yeah, I mean, we're seeing definitely a more reasonable interest rate. And really, for most of the time I've sold real estate over the last 15 years, that the rates are somewhere in between 4.5 and 6.5%. So this feels normal.
Yeah. I was a little worried. The jobs data was so good last week that I was like, we might see a little bit of correction with rates and they go back up, but they still came down. So I think people are saying this from a mortgage perspective. If inflation gets under control, they're going to continue to fall. Now, they won't fall back to 2 or 3, but you might see them enter into that high 4 range by the end of the year. So, that's a great rate.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great historical rate. Your grandparents or whomever probably bought houses in the 16 to 20% range.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
You buy a house at 4.9, you complain, your grandparents are probably going to be pretty pissed.
Exactly. So, basically what does this mean translate to for your clients if they're sellers or buyers? And, there's this maybe mentality from a seller perspective that they may have missed the boat. I don't think so. In my mind, it's like, no, you've gained a substantial amount of equity. Yet we're not going to be in multiple offer scenarios like what we were in 2021 and 2022 in terms of crazy, way over asking, covering appraisal gaps. But that doesn't mean that they lost equity in their home necessarily. So they've still gained a substantial amount of equity over the last couple of years. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, look at anyone who owns a home right now. Go and look at whatever source you want to use. Ask your local real estate agent, whatever, what your home value is today, what they would list it for today, and what it was worth in the beginning to middle of 2019.
Yeah, get some perspective. For
And you
crying out
tell
loud.
me
Yeah.
it's not worth at least 20% more than it was, depending on your market. Probably, especially in Nashville, it's at least worth 20% more than it was then. So you're doing fine.
You're doing absolutely fine. So yeah, if you're a seller and you're listening, or if you're advising sellers, you have still won by owning property for, a period of time. The benefits for buyers, you're seeing a lot of seller concessions right now. So sellers are a lot more willing to work in terms of closing costs. There's been a lot of talk about buying down rates, which I think is not a great thing to do. I don't think we need to be buying down rates. I think we can contribute towards closing costs. And, if rates drop low, you can refi later.
Yeah, everybody's got a different perspective. I think rates are coming down on their own, so I wouldn't advise it, because if you're buying down that rate today, you're protecting yourself from a future rate that's higher. So you're buying it down now, knowing that you're going to get it at the absolute lowest point you can for a while. And if you plan to stay in the home for 5 years, it makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
But if you're buying down a rate that's at 6.5 today, and you're taking it down to 5.5 or whatever, and it's going to go to 5.5 on its own in 6 months,
Right.
what have you really done?
Exactly. Nothing. So yeah, if you're, for your buyer clients, it's just a great time to get out there. I don't think we've fully shifted into a buyer's market. We were somewhere in between sellers and buyer's market, but depending on the price point, depending on the area, real estate's local. So you can still see there's a lot of benefit for being a buyer right now in the marketplace. And really, in a lot of scenarios, you can come with just your down payment. So you're not having to bring a ton of cash. You can come with just your down payment and purchase a home.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about strategies for winning in 2023 and, what it's going to take. And I think the word that keeps popping back up as I've talked with realtors this year, and we're getting back into it, is focus. There has been a lot of distraction. There's been a lot of chaos over the last couple of years, and it's going to require a higher level of focus for you to succeed in this market. Focus on the things that you should be doing. And, what feels like work is probably not what you should be doing, or what feels like normal over the past couple of years is probably not what you should do. And what feels like maybe feels different is maybe the thing that you should be doing. And really what that is, I was talking to, agents this morning in masterminds, is focusing on referral database, focusing on lead generation, the time that you spend on the phone. And this is a differentiation, because I think in the past, realtors were so busy serving their clients, serving in a customer service, doing showings, writing offers, negotiating. That's not really the job. That's a part of the job, but the real job is driving new business to you. So for the past couple of years, for a lot of you, you didn't have to drive new business because everybody was in a frenzy and everybody was coming and knocking at your door. And that's not the case anymore. So you're going to have to focus on creating new business and reconnecting with your clientele that's bought or sold in the past.
Yeah, I mean, and let's be real too. Like, a lot of those tasks you just described that they're working on that they probably shouldn't be spending all their time on, those are mundane and fairly easy. Whereas creating new business or generating new business, lead generation, that's a difficult that's a task that drains you,
Right?
Because you're making those outbound calls. You're trying to convince people to do something that maybe they are on the fence about. So those are, when you talk about agents being tired or burnt out a little bit, that's what it is. It's trying to generate that new business.
Well, right. And I think it's the distance between the activity that they're doing and creating cash in their bank account. And it's easy when you're out showing houses, you can create the path very quickly. It's like, I show houses to this person, they put in an offer, I get paid in 4 to 6 weeks.
Exactly.
Right. Now, if you're doing lead generation, you don't know necessarily how that's all going to come together. So that's where maybe it can be difficult to conceptualize, but in the reality, that's the real job.
Yep.
Right, is doing those things where you can't necessarily create or see exactly where it's going, but you need to continue to do that work, because those things it's planting seeds, right, for future business, and you need to be doing those things.
And when those lead sources that you pay for dry up, or they become a little slower, or they can't deliver what they promised, you've got to have other sources of people in the pipeline. And that's outbound calling.
That's absolutely right. And that's one of the things that, maybe we can rabbit trail for a minute on is that sense of, all of these other platforms that people have depended on to provide them leads. And in reality, those lead generation sources, they can change anytime they want to.
In an instant.
Right. And we saw them change, the Zillers and the Realtor.coms and all those lead generation sources. They were like, we don't know what just happened.
Yeah. And I'm not sitting here to knock Zillow and tell you not to use Zillow or don't pay Zillow or one of those people that just thinks Zillow is the devil. But they absolutely met with us and said, like, we promised this amount of leads and we can't deliver it.
Yeah.
So we are closing off any purchasing of new zip codes right now because we don't know what's going on. And so that's them being reactive to a situation that was very real. But then also, let's say that they do open Zillow Real Estate like they just did with mortgage and title, and they funnel all their businesses to internal agents, and it's gone in an instant. And that's your only source of business.
The best platform for you is your own. And you need to be continually building, developing your database, your platform to develop, to communicate with your clientele. It's the best way to do it. Don't, I'm the same way. I'm not knocking Zillow. I'm not knocking these other platforms, but you need to own the thing that you're operating in. Right. And what I would say is the long-term benefit of having someplace where you're getting leads, whatever it is that you're continually building your platform so that you don't need it anymore.
Yeah. One thing we know for sure, real estate transactions will become more and more digital, more and more automated.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
100%. But people out there will always want the personal touch because of the complexity of the transaction.
Yes.
Now, there will be people that are comfortable doing it in a more automated fashion than others, but there will be people out there that you can serve because of the complexity of these transactions, and those are the people you focus on.
That's right. So, so again, make sure you're focusing and stay away from the distractions that will keep you from being successful. And a lot of those distractions can look like, overuse of social media, things that you're doing around the house, social situations. Just make sure that you are doing for the amount of time that you've set aside to do your lead generation or your focus time. Use it to do those things. So there are a myriad of apps and all sorts of like aids to help you to stay focused. And I would just encourage you to make sure that the time that you've set aside to develop new business is spent on developing new business, and not to get distracted with drama, not to get distracted with social media. Focus on the things that are most important to developing your business.
And by the way, that's even a message to productive agents. How often do we see someone get that $15,000 paycheck from a big closing and be like, I can take a break.
Yep.
Like I can, maybe slough off for the next 15 to 20 days because my rent's paid for 3 months and I'm good for now. And I don't need another closing until September.
Yeah, exactly.
Pay attention, because that pipeline has to stay full at all times, so that if something happens, if your lead generation sources dry up, or if you're not getting the referral business you're used to, or if a closing gets punted, you're good.
Yeah. The other thing is you need to review your performance weekly. And really where the rubber meets the road is in the number of appointments that you set. Okay. So you need to predetermine an amount of appointments that are going to help you deliver. And usually if you're a full-time agent, it looks like 2 appointments per day, but you need to review that weekly to see where you are in number of appointments that you set, because that's going to be the determining factor in how many closings that you have. But how many appointments did you set with qualified and or research buyers and sellers? And how many closings did you have as a result of that, or how did you further? So you just want to review everything every single week so you know what happened and what you might need to adjust in the upcoming week. And I just think it's a essential element of successful business ownership is that you're reviewing performance statistics.
Yeah. That personal feedback you're giving yourself for your commitment setting or your goal setting structure is keeping you on track. So if you've decided that your income goal is $100,000, and to do that you need 12 closings, and to do that you need 2 appointments per day, and you fall off the wagon of getting 2 appointments per day, your income goal is going to be missed. So you either got to adjust your income goal or continue setting more appointments. And so that has to be reviewed constantly. It's an important piece of the puzzle. It's really the main activity you should be focusing, the only activity that you should put that much focus into.
Right. So that will wrap up sort of the focus, the things that you need to focus over the next year. The second thing is going to be time management. And this is one that buries a lot of agents because they get really caught up in the showings. They get really caught up in the transaction management. There are things that feel like work. You can directly tie money to the activity, quote unquote. But this is where a lot of agents go sideways, is because they'll spend all of their time on that customer service. They'll bottom out on their production. They'll close those houses, and then all of a sudden they've got nothing in the pipeline. So they'll lose their pipeline. So, I want to encourage you as agents to stay off the roller coaster and just basically develop those daily habits, stick to those daily habits. But one of the things is you have to really guard your time. You have to be a steward of your time. And the time that you have set aside, you need to set aside time for lead generation, business development. You need to set aside time for to do your customer service or answer questions and things like that. You can do that. And you need to set a time to do showings. So all of those can work into your schedule in ways that are going to be effective, that you can communicate and you can triage priorities or clients as they're coming in based on the level, like how quickly they need to purchase a home. But the key concept that I want you to grasp here is don't let your clients determine your schedule. Don't be reactive. So here's what that sounds like. If a client calls you and says, yeah, hey, I want to go see this house, do not say, when do you want to go see it? Because they're typically going to have an answer that's going to cut into the time that you had set aside for something else.
Yep.
So what should the answer be? If I say, hey, RL, I'd like to go look at a house this week.
If your schedule's open at 2 or 4, say, do you want to go at 2 or you want to go at 4?
Yeah, exactly. Let you determine when you're going to go do it. Now, that said, I will give you an exception if there's some sort of scenario where there's a quote unquote emergency or it's under multiple offer. We need to take action on it quickly. Okay, fine. But the majority of showings, the majority of problems that need to be solved can be done in a specific time frame that you have set aside to do it.
And we hosted a goal setting session for a team yesterday, and this came up, and how to protect your time and setting boundaries. And these strategies are all very helpful. What you have to do though is be very specific about what you're going to allow to fit your schedule, just like Brandon said. So if you're saying I can go at 2 or I can go at 4 and they have to pick one, just know that people understand that. People have time schedules as well. And if they don't understand it and they expect you to bend over backwards to go show them houses at Sunday at 8:00 at night, and you've got kids to put to bed, then they're not clients you're going to want to work with, and they're clients that you need to move on from. And that's another thing about building your pipeline is if it's not going to work out with Brandon because he's not flexible and only wants to go see houses at crazy hours, then I've got someone else in my pipeline that I can work with, and it's not like I'm losing the only deal I have on my plate.
Right. So, the key is, though, you have to determine your schedule, and your clients can adjust to your rhythm. You don't need to necessarily adjust to theirs. And here's the deal. Most of the time, the problem isn't that the clients are irrational. The problem isn't that the clients can only see properties at this time. The problem is that realtors are people pleasers,
yes,
and they don't ever want to tell anybody no, or they don't want to give anybody any constrictive time frame because they don't want to. They're scared to lose the business.
Yeah. And there's always exceptions. Learn how to read people as well. Like, let's say you have a client that's been totally reasonable with you on every aspect of how you've been working with them. And they say, I work nights at the hospital, and during the day I sleep. So I've got this like one little window I can go look at houses. Yeah. Then maybe you try to work with that person because they're trying to be reasonable and they just have this weird schedule. I get it. But you can tell the difference between that and someone who's absolutely just trying to take advantage of the fact that you're a realtor and they expect you to do whatever they want you to do whenever they want you to do it.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of this can be solved in the buyer consultation. You should be having a buyer consultation. If you haven't listened to a previous podcast, you need to be meeting with clients and talking to them about what the expectations are for purchasing a property, and what are likely scenarios to come up. And you can talk to them about, you say, hey, listen, this is when I typically show houses, unless there's an emergency, we've got a property that's going to be at multiple offers immediately, something like that. We can make an adjustment for that. But typically, this is when I like to show houses so that I can preserve, time for my family. Most people are going to understand that.
Yeah. And again, if they don't, then
do you
probably
really
not somebody you want to work with.
probably don't want to
because
work with them.
That's going to be the least of your problems going forward. I can assure you that.
Absolutely. So yeah, you can make exceptions, make them rare, but again, the more you communicate on the front end, how this works with your clients, the better the outcome's going to be, because you're setting the rules of the game. Right. And they're 90% of the time going to be super respectful of that.
And I'll just use that as a lead into delegation. So let's say that because that's our next topic. Let's say that you can't find a time that works for both of you. That is a good opportunity to delegate. And that is part of something that you should go over in your buyer consultation, is that, hey, if you do have a house that's outside of these windows, I do have other showing agents, but just know that there'll be times where another showing agent will be walking you through the home. I'm still there behind the scenes working for you. Yeah. I still know everything about the transaction. I'll still be shepherding the process as we get through the part where we're making offers, but just know that I do have to hand off certain aspects of the business throughout the transaction.
Yeah, that's right. And so, once you get to be a busy agent, I was talking to an agent about this today because she's got 4 listings coming up. She's rocking and rolling. She's excited about this new year, and she already sees, she goes, I typically carry 2 listings, and I know how much work it is in terms of communication with agents as they're coming in. So how do I set myself up to be successful and not burn out and she was going to do 4 immediately, and then she had another couple on the heels of that. So she's tripling her typical listing load and trying to figure out how to manage that. And that's where I said, okay, it's probably time to start doing delegation. So you don't need to do every showing. You don't need to do every piece of paperwork on every listing. You certainly need a transaction coordinator. If you don't have a transaction coordinator, we have a partner company called Revolve. You need to use Revolve. They're fantastic at helping you manage your transactions. You certainly need a TC. But again, where realtors mess up on the delegation is they don't delegate appropriately, or they don't know how to do it. And so where realtors typically go is they say, hey, can you do this? And then they expect the person to read their mind. And delegation is a skill. You need to spend some time first for you understanding what different levels of delegation there are, how to delegate effectively based on what you expect, or how much visibility you need into the process of this particular task. So, and also you need to communicate effectively that to the person that you're delegating to. So one of the resources that I like to use, it's in the free download section of fullfocus.co. It's called the 5 levels of delegation. That's fullfocus.co in the free download section. 5 levels of delegation. And it helps you sort of weed through. It's like, okay, well, what am I delegating? What level of oversight do I need? What do I need to communicate to the person that I'm delegating to? So, again, let's just take showing houses, for example. Okay. So let's say I've got a realtor. I'm like, hey, can you go show these 3 houses for me? And you just throw addresses at them. Well, that's not going to work, right? Because they need to know who are they showing houses to.
Yes.
So we need to get them the information for the buyers, or for the people who are looking at the houses. We need to know the timeframes that work for them. We need to know if they decide to write an offer on the house, what happens at that point.
A little bit about what they're shopping for, just to have some sense of going into it with being able to ask the right questions to the people they're showing houses to.
Right.
But communication is what the listener does.
Yeah.
Communication is what the listener does. So if someone's out showing houses and you, as the person who delegated, said, well, you should have known to do this. No, that was on you to communicate that you expected of them. So if they didn't do it, it's because you didn't communicate to them what you actually needed.
I've never heard you say that before. That's really good. Communication is what the listener does. And if they don't do it, you didn't communicate it.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just super important, as you, depending on where you are in the process of your career, you're growing into a level of professionalism where you need help and you need to know how to effectively use the people that are going to be helping you. So that way you can create success for your organization as you grow, for your business, right? Each and every one of you is a business owner. You own your own business. And so you're going to have to delegate, as you grow to create effective scalability and growth in your organization. Okay, so let's recap. So again, the 3 things that are going to be effective strategies. Number 1 is focus. Make sure that you are focused on the things that are most important. Number 2 is time management. Make sure you're setting aside appropriate time to do things that matter. And again, the buyer consultation, the seller consultation, clearly communicating how the process works and when you're going to be communicating with them, showing them houses, things like that. Time management is going to be essential, and also time management for your lead generation, your business development, and sticking to that. And then the third thing would be, how to delegate effectively, to create a solid outcome and have a level of service that is commensurate to what you typically offer your clients. And that's going to happen through you communicating to the person who's assisting you. Anything you want to add?
No, I think that's good. Good place to stop.
Yeah.
Good way to wrap up.
Right.
Again, Happy New Year. Sorry we took that 2 weeks off.
Yeah. Happy New Year. And also, feel free to join us for goal setting January 12th, 9 to 12 a.m. We'll put the link in show notes, and hopefully we'll be seeing you then. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Thanks.